Discover how a single mom's last five for bread led to an incredible CEO's life-changing gesture. It was a chilly afternoon as Sarah clutched the last 5 crumpled dollars in her purse. This wasn't just money, it was a lifeline. Standing outside the local grocery store, she felt the weight of her choice heavy on her chest. Should she buy the loaf of bread that would make Timmy's favorite peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or save it for that looming bill? The thought clawed at her, but Timmy came first. As she approached the counter, she could almost hear his laughter, the sweet sound echoing like a melody amid their struggles. She imagined his eyes lighting up as she placed the bread on the counter, singing, "Astronaut sandwiches." But life in the heart of this small Midwestern town often felt like an uphill battle. Sarah worked 2 demanding jobs at the diner and a cleaning service, her days blending into a relentless cycle of customer orders and scrubbing floors. Still, she poured her love, her laughter, into her spirited 7-year-old son. Dreams of becoming an astronaut danced in Timmy's mind, and she reveled in nurturing that hope, even as her own dreams faded into shadows. Just as she was about to hand over the money for the bread, the intoxicating scent of freshly baked goods wafted out from the nearby bakery, tantalizing and teasing. The thought of cinnamon rolls made her stomach rumble, yet the loaf of bread in her hands reminded her of family meals long gone. No, she would not be swayed. Meanwhile, Michael, the successful CEO of a booming tech company, strolled through this town, his hands tucked casually into his coat pockets. The invitation to the charity event weighed heavily on his mind. As he walked, he thought back to his childhood, uncertain of how he had lost touch with places like this. Then, he spotted Sarah, clutching the loaf of bread like a treasure, her face lined with humility and determination. The contrast struck him like a thunderbolt. Here was a mother, a fighter, trapped in a world filled with economic disparity, while he sat at the top of a towering corporate ladder. Why should she have to choose between feeding her child and paying bills? As Michael observed the moment, a realization washed over him, a sense of guilt mixed with a budding resolve. He decided, in that very instant, that he could no longer ignore the cries of this struggling community. And it was as if Sarah had unknowingly ignited something in him, a spark that could turn into a wildfire of change. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah turned to leave, her heart gripped with both relief and anxiety, the pangs of hardship wrapping around her like a tight hug. Michael couldn't shift his focus. He was ready to dive deeper, to find the roots of these struggles, yet a wave of apprehension washed over him. The town had its own rhythm, steeped in pride, yet marred with stubbornness. How would they react to an outsider trying to help? Back at the bakery, Sarah's thoughts spiraled into the future. Timmy was her anchor, but could a loaf of bread turn into something more meaningful? Would it inspire change, or would it simply be another nod to her struggle, unnoticed and unresolved? She needed to find her way, just as Michael began to understand the weight of his privilege and what it truly meant to lend a hand. As discussions brewed in the community about outside help versus local pride, an inevitable clash surfaced. In the heat of the moment, Sarah would have to choose between her dignity and her desire for a better life for Timmy. Meanwhile, Michael wrestled with whether simple goodwill could bridge the divide between them. After all, could a single mom's humble plea for bread spark a transformative journey for a successful CEO? The answer lay ahead, waiting to unravel in the chaos of their intertwined fates. Sarah stepped out of the store, clutching the loaf of bread like a trophy, yet her heart felt heavy. The chill in the air nipped at her cheeks, mirroring the anxiety gnawing at her insides. She took a deep breath, trying to envision the moment Timmy would dive into the kitchen, eyes sparkling as he spotted the bread. But the joy fell flat, overshadowed by the familiarity of her worries. In the depths of her thoughts, the laughter of the children playing in the park reached her ears, a sound of happiness she craved for Timmy but couldn't always afford to give him. She started her walk back home, each step echoing the beat of her turmoil. What if she hadn't chosen the bread? What if that $5 remained a reminder of all they were missing? Meanwhile, Michael was still transfixed by her image, long after she vanished down the street. A flicker of hope ignited within him, challenging the narrative of his life that had grown too comfortable. He fished his phone out of his pocket, hesitating. Should he reach out to the community? He felt another tug at his conscience, a pull that told him he couldn't just turn away. On a whim, he turned around, heading towards the local coffee shop he had passed earlier. Maybe there, he could meet someone who understood the community's pulse better than he did. As he pushed open the door, the bells jingled merrily, contrasting with the storm of thoughts brewing inside him. The warmth enveloped him instantly, the inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee promising a moment of solace amid his conflicting emotions. Seated in the corner, he caught the eye of a barista named Rachel who had been part of this town for years. She wore a bright smile, one that could light up even the darkest days. He approached, introducing himself with a blend of hesitance and newfound determination. "Do you have a minute?" Rachel nodded, her curiosity piqued as she poured him a steaming cup. They began to speak, and her stories echoed the struggles he had witnessed in Sarah. Rachel painted a vivid picture of families struggling with eviction, children going hungry, and the heart-wrenching choices mothers like Sarah faced every day. Michael listened intently, a sense of urgency washing over him. "What they need is support," Rachel said softly, her brow furrowing. "But you can't just throw money at the problems. It's about creating opportunities, about understanding the community." Those words clung to his mind as they walked through the town, with Rachel exposing him to local heroes, volunteers, teachers, and small business owners who worked tirelessly to uplift those around them. Meanwhile, as Sarah arrived home, she found Timmy sprawled on the living room floor, his crayons scattered, creating a galaxy of colors around him. She smiled, the weight on her shoulders softening just a bit. "Astronaut sandwiches for lunch, buddy." She chirped, words barely escaping her lips before Timmy jumped up, excitement written all over his face. But just as they settled down, there was a knock at the door. Sarah's heart staggered in her chest as she paused. Who could it be? Was it looming bad news or perhaps an unexpected visitor with hidden intentions? Little did Sarah know, just a few streets down, Michael was battling his own dilemma. How could he help this brave mother? And could his desire to make a change be enough? With their paths set to cross, changes loomed on the horizon, ready to challenge their beliefs and the very fabric of their lives. Would Sarah be ready to accept help? Would Michael find the courage to offer it authentically? As the door creaked open, the moment of truth began to unfold. Sarah inhaled sharply as she opened the door. It creaked ominously, and for a split second, dread pooled in her stomach. Standing on her doorstep was a man she didn't recognize, dressed in a casual blazer and jeans so different from the usual visitors she encountered. "Hi, I'm Michael," he said, extending a hand. "I hope I'm not bothering you." Her heart raced. Hello. What can I do for you?" He hesitated, reading the uncertainty on her face. "I heard about you from someone. I know things have been tough. I wanted to check in, see how I can help." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Help? Why would you want to help me?" His sincerity surprised her. "I've seen families like yours in the community struggling, and I've talked to people who care. I want to do something, but I can't do it alone." The moment hung between them, thick with tension. She wanted to slam the door and retreat back into her safe, familiar chaos. After all, trust was a luxury they could rarely afford. But something in Michael's gaze, earnest and hopeful, held her at bay. "What do you mean? You think I need help?" He nodded. "I know how hard it can be to ask for it, but I believe in community. We can find resources, support whatever you need." Timmy, unaware of the weighty conversation at the door, peeked out from the living room, his crayon still in hand. "Who is that, Mom?" "Just a friend," Sarah replied, not wanting to let anxiety seep into her tone. Michael crouched down, his voice gentle. "Hi there, Timmy. What are you working on?" Timmy's eyes lit up. "I'm creating a rocket ship. It's going to have green flames." He beamed with pride, showing off the chaotic masterpiece he had made. "Wow, that is amazing." Michael responded, a soft smile crossing his face. "You're an artist." Timmy grinned wider, puffing up his chest. As the two exchanged pleasantries, Sarah's apprehensions fluttered. This felt different than other encounters, less suspicious, more genuine. But doubts lingered in the back of her mind. What did he want from her? "Can we talk?" Michael asked, still kneeling down. "I want to understand what you're going through." She weighed his words carefully. Her instincts told her to protect her son and guard her heart. Yet, the possibility of a lifeline sparked something that had long been dormant. I don't know if I'm ready for that," she confessed, her voice wavering. "That's okay," he reassured, standing back up. "No pressure. I'm here when you're ready. Just know you're not alone." And with that, he turned to leave but paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "I can't promise everything will change overnight, but I hope you'll consider it." The door closed softly as he stepped away, leaving Sarah standing there with her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Timmy dashed back over, his shimmering rocket ship forgotten. Was he here to play? "Something like that," Sarah replied, feeling the weight of uncertainty in her chest. But beneath that, a flicker of hope mingled with her fears. As her mind raced with the implications of accepting help, she could already feel a small shift, like a door creaking open, allowing for a breath of fresh air. What would she do if she chose to let Michael in? Would embracing change mean risking safety, or could it open a whole new universe for them? With these questions swirling around her, she found herself standing at a crossroads, one that could change the trajectory of her life and Timmy's forever. But the momentary peace was interrupted as she caught a glimpse of Michael in the distance, talking animatedly to someone else. Who was he trying to help now, and what impact might this man have on their lives? A gentle squeeze on her shoulder brought her back to the present. Timmy's innocent smile tugged at her heart. "Mom, can we finish our rocket ship?" "Of course, buddy. Let us build our dreams," she replied, though a new dream began to take shape in her mind, one where maybe, just maybe, they could have more than just bread for dinner. Would she dare to chase that dream? Would Michael's promise of support ignite a change in her life? As Sarah and Timmy settled back at the kitchen table, the remnants of yesterday's chaos still lingered in the corners of their small home. Crayons were strewn across the surface, paper cutouts dangerously close to being labeled as art rather than clutter. But in this mess, she found a strange comfort. Every piece of disarray told a story, a history of perseverance, laughter, and love. "Okay, let us add the flames," she suggested, drawing Timmy's attention back to his rocket ship. His excitement was contagious, and for a moment, Sarah allowed herself to get lost in the world of imagination, but even as she plotted vibrant colors for the rocket, her mind couldn't shake the encounter with Michael. Who was he, really? A kind stranger trying to help them, or just another passing figure in their story? Despite her reservations, she felt a twinge of curiosity. What if support was actually out there, waiting for her to grasp it? Timmy's laughter brought her back to reality. "Look, Mom. It's ready for launch." He proudly held up the crumpled rocket that resembled a wild burst of creativity more than a model spaceship. "It looks amazing, buddy." She clapped her hands together, her smile genuine. The innocence of his excitement reminded her of what it meant to hope to dream without the heavy chains of doubt binding her spirit. After they spent the afternoon creating various modes of flight, Sarah felt a small victory in herself. Yet, as the sun began to set, a shadow of reality loomed. Bills waited in an unyielding stack on the counter, the fridge held more air than food, and the housing situation felt precarious. The quietness of the evening settled in. Timmy eventually drifted off to sleep, his small body curling up on the couch, the makeshift rocket ship by his side like a proud guardian. Sarah tiptoed past him, surprised at the sudden lump in her throat. She realized it wasn't just the heaviness of the day that made her feel this way, it was the looming sense of failure for not providing more. With a deep breath, Sarah opened the kitchen drawer housing the envelopes of bills, one set apart with a red stamp glaring back at her. In her gut, she felt the tension build. Would asking for help really change anything? Or would it expose vulnerabilities she wasn't ready to reveal? Just then, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. Her heart raced as she opened it. It was Michael, expressing encouragement and offering to help if she decided to reach out. The simple words hung heavy with potential. Was it a mistake? She whispered, scanning the remains of their dinner sitting cold on the table. Would asking for help just make things worse? As she pondered the possibilities, her fingers hovered above the keyboard, longing to type. Did she need to take a chance? A chance that could lead to something greater than she could envision for herself. Suddenly, a thought struck her. What if this path wasn't just for herself? Maybe taking that leap could create a better life for Timmy, too. A life filled with hope instead of survival. With resolve building inside her, she finally typed back, the words flowing more easily than she expected. Michael, I'd like to talk. With that simple message, a tiny spark ignited within her. But would it be enough to light the way forward? And just as she pressed send, the door of opportunity creaked open. Outside, the evening air held a promise that she now dared to believe in. As her heart raced in anticipation of what might come next, a memory of her father's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes, the hardest thing is knowing when to take a leap. What awaited her on the other side of that leap? Would she find the help she desperately needed, or would it lead her to a dead end? With Timmy snuggled under a patchwork blanket, Sarah found herself pacing the small kitchen. The moment she sent that text, her pulse quickened, but doubt crept back in. What had she done? Her thoughts raced. Was reaching out to a stranger smart or reckless? The phone buzzed again, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Michael. I'm here if you need to talk. No pressure, just a friend reaching out. His words hit her like a gentle breeze, inviting yet uncertain. She felt a pang of relief wash over her, but also the weight of what lay ahead. Taking a deep breath, Sarah settled onto a warm kitchen chair, the wood cold beneath her. She gazed at Timmy, his tiny chest rising and falling softly. This has to be for you, she murmured, choking on the emotion. A life without constant worry, a chance for him to just be a kid. The phone vibrated again. With careful fingers, she typed, "Okay, can we meet?" She pressed send before hesitation could grip her again. Almost instantly, a reply appeared. How about tomorrow afternoon? Coffee shop on Main Street? It felt surreal, like she was jumping from one world into another, stepping away from the shadows of her mind into the warmth of potential. A coffee shop, a place bustling with life, laughter, and people. Could it really be that simple? The thought of leaving the familiar comforts of home and stepping into the unknown both thrilled and terrified her. But what could it hurt? A cup of coffee, simple conversation. Could this be the turning point she'd been yearning for? The evening wore on, shadows dancing around her. She tidied the kitchen, trying to keep her hands busy while her mind raced with thoughts of tomorrow. Would Michael be welcoming? Would he understand her struggles? Anxiety surged as she considered how to present her situation. Just be yourself, she told the echo of her own reflection in the darkened window. Before heading to bed, she checked on Timmy one more time. Curled up in sleep, he looked so peaceful, so untroubled. A small sigh escaped her lips. I'm doing this for you, buddy, she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. Morning came too fast, sun streaming into the room like rays of hope. After a quick breakfast of toast and the last of the juice, Sarah dressed in the best clothes she had, a slightly faded sweater and jeans that had seen better days. It didn't matter how they looked, but how she felt. Today, she wanted confidence on her side that as she stepped out into the crisp air, anticipation bubbled within her. The coffee shop loomed ahead, a hub of chatter and warmth that echoed her inner fears and hopes. Sarah's heart raced with every step. Could this moment truly change everything? Once inside, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled her senses, grounding her, awakening that little voice of bravery inside her heart. She spotted Michael sitting at a table. He looked absolutely ordinary, yet there was a calm about him that set her at ease. She approached him, her legs shaking but determination etched on her face. "Hi, Michael," she said, voice steady despite the tumult inside. "Thanks for meeting me." His smile was warm, disarming, and so genuine. "Of course, Sarah. I'm really glad you reached out." As they sat and the conversation flowed, Sarah felt a mix of relief and hope bubbling within her. But she still held back, hesitant to dive deeper into her story. Would sharing her fears about financial stability and Timmy's future scare him away? In that moment, she heard the clock ticking. It felt like both a countdown and an invitation. Was she finally ready to unleash the truth? The tremors of uncertainty intertwined with a growing eagerness. Just as she gathered the courage to open up, Michael leaned in, his expression shifting into one of concern. "Sarah, I want to help you, but you need to let me in. What's really going on?" That question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Would she share her fears, her desires, her life? Sarah took a deep breath, feeling as if her world was on the brink of changing forever. Where would this conversation lead? Would it be the lifeline they both needed, or would it expose deeper cracks that she wasn't yet ready to face? And just as she prepared to answer, a shadow fell across the table, and an unexpected figure appeared at her side. The figure towered over them, casting a long shadow across the table. Sarah looked up, her heart racing as she recognized the familiar face: Samuel, the owner of the bakery where she'd always bought Timmy's favorite cookies. His presence felt like a jolt of electricity, disrupting the fragile moment with Michael. "Sarah," he exclaimed, his voice booming yet friendly. "I didn't expect to see you here. How's Timmy doing?" Caught off guard, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A flurry of emotions erupted within her. Samuel had always shown kindness, but this was unexpected. Would sharing space with him complicate things with Michael? Timidly, she glanced at Michael for reassurance. He nodded slightly, encouraging her without saying a word. "He's good," she replied, forcing a smile, though her heart was still racing. "Just busy with school." Samuel's attention shifted to Michael, his brow furrowing with curiosity. "And you are?" "Michael," he said, extending a hand. "Just having some coffee with Sarah." "Nice to meet you, Michael." Samuel responded, shaking his hand before turning back to Sarah. "Listen, I want to talk to you about Timmy. I've been thinking about doing something special for the kids in our community. Maybe a baking class, an opportunity for them to learn some skills, have fun. I think Timmy would love that." The idea tickled at the edge of Sarah's heart, filling her with a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. The thought of Timmy laughing, covered in flour, and learning to bake cookies sent a surge of hope through her. But doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. "That sounds great," she said, but what?" Samuel asked gently, sensing her hesitation. "It's just finances are tight. I don't want to add more to the burden. He loves to bake, but sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in worry." As the words tumbled from her lips, it felt liberating yet terrifying. She had opened a window into her struggle, and she could feel Michael's intent gaze locked onto her, waiting for her to finish. "You don't have to worry about that. I can cover the costs," Samuel said, his voice firm yet gentle. "I really want to help out. Kids need to feel supported. I know the struggles of being a single parent. I've been there." A wave of gratitude washed over Sarah, bringing tears to her eyes. This wasn't just an offer of baking lessons, it was a glimpse of hope in a world too often filled with shadows. Michael chimed in, his voice steady. That's incredibly generous of you, Samuel. But this is about more than baking, isn't it? Sarah, maybe you can share what you've been holding back. The pulse of the moment hung heavy in the air, a bright spotlight illuminating her fears. All Sarah wanted was for Timmy to have a chance. But could she trust two men who seemed so willing to extend their hands? Just then, doubts clawed at her heart. Would explaining her situation push them away? Before she could respond, another figure approached the coffee shop owner, and he carried a large steaming cup as if it were a trophy. This was on the house. We love seeing customers supporting each other, he said. But when he noticed Sarah's abrupt stillness, his smile faded slightly. Everything okay here? Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the walls close in and expand at once. This was the moment. Actually, no, I have a lot on my plate right now. Two probing eyes stared back at her, one soft with concern, the other filled with encouragement. What would it take to break down her barriers completely? Could she truly let herself be seen, let alone helped? As she weighed her options, reality pressed in on her. On this day, at this table, everything could change. The moment echoed with silent urgency, and just as Sarah opened her mouth to speak, Timmy's laughing face flashed before her eyes. In that silent shout for courage, she took a deep breath, prepared to reveal everything. But before she could utter a word, the door swung open, and a loud commotion erupted, stealing her focus entirely. The door swung open with a jingle, and a rush of chilly air followed the random assortment of loud voices. Sarah's heart quickened. She turned to see a group of teenagers stumbling into the cafe, chatting and laughing as if they owned the place. They were full of energy, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to the weight pressing down on her. In the chaos, her moment of vulnerability slipped away. Sarah felt the room spin slightly, the laughter around her overshadowing the heaviness she had just shared. She glanced back at Michael and Samuel, both wearing expressions of amusement mingled with surprise. Wow, look at those kids, Michael said, shaking his head slightly as he leaned back in his chair. They remind me of my friends back in the day. No worries in the world. Samuel chuckled, his demeanor relaxed. It's good to see young people enjoying themselves. But hey, Sarah, don't let them distract you. You were saying. The weight of his words pulled her back, but she hesitated. How could she possibly peel back the layers of her life, especially now when laughter and joy flashed around her? I was just thinking about Timmy and what he needs. Samuel leaned in, his eyes steady and warm. You're a good mom, Sarah. It's okay to be honest about what that means, especially when it feels impossible. Just then, Sarah caught the eye of one of the newcomers, a tall girl with bright blue hair, laughing as she stood in front of the counter. She could almost see how free that girl felt. A life untouched by the burdens Sarah carried. Then the girl turned and bumped into a table, sending a coffee cup teetering toward the edge. It splashed like a small wave, scattering droplets across the floor. Oops. My bad. The girl squealed, a giggle escaping her lips as she hurriedly helped clean up. It was such a little act, yet the energy in the room shifted. Sarah couldn't help but smile. Maybe it was a sign that she could find a little bit of that freedom for herself. Michael then took a sip of his coffee, eyeing Sarah thoughtfully. Honesty can be your safest place. If you're struggling, digging in doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. His words hit hard. Was he right? Suddenly, a pang of loneliness settled in her chest. What was stopping her from sharing her fears? Time was slipping, and she knew deep down that her son deserved more than a mother weighed down by worry. But how could she share everything? The late night spent juggling bills, the suffocating sense of defeat every time she looked at Timmy's hopeful eyes. Sarah shifted in her seat, her voice trembling slightly. I feel like I'm being crushed under the weight of all of this. I'm scared I'll let him down. Both men listened, their expressions shifting to pure focus. Samuel leaned closer, sensing the gravity of her confession. You're not alone in this fight, Sarah. So many of us have felt the same way, and we want to help. Let us. As they sat there, a silence blossomed around their small group. But then, the laughter from the teens erupted again, and Sarah's smile faltered. What if I can't do this? At that moment, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Sarah fished it out, her heart tightening as she saw the message. It was a notification from her bank. She opened it, and her heart sank. Some expense she had forgotten about had just cleared. Her balance was lower than she thought, a mere $5 left to her name. This can't be happening, she whispered, feeling sick. Michael and Samuel exchanged horrified looks. What is it? Samuel asked, concern lacing his voice. The noise faded around her as she faced her reality. Was this it? Would she spiral further down the rabbit hole? Before she could respond, the door swung open again, and in walked a sharply dressed man, eyes scanning the room before settling on her. Excuse me, he said, his voice commanding. Are you Sarah? Every eye was suddenly on her, and her heart raced again. Who was this man? What did he want? And just as she was about to find out, a flicker of hope ignited inside her, whispering that maybe, just maybe, everything was about to change. Her palms were clammy, and the buzz of conversations faded into a dull roar as Sarah focused on the man standing before her. He was tall, sharply dressed, with silver streaks in his hair that only added to his commanding presence. As he approached, she could see there was an intensity in his eyes, a mix of determination and compassion. Yes, I'm Sarah, she managed, her voice barely a whisper. Good. I'm Patrick King, he replied, extending his hand. I need to speak with you. The room felt heavy with silence, the laughter from the teenagers turning into muffled sounds, like they were in another world. Sarah glanced at Michael and Samuel, who watched with wide eyes, seemingly as curious as she was. Patrick lowered his voice, leaning in slightly. It's important. Can we find somewhere more private? She nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. What could he possibly want with her? He had the face of authority, though there was something softer about him too. She could feel that flicker of hope growing stronger. They moved to a corner booth, away from the bustling activity. Patrick sat across from her, his demeanor serious but inviting. I've been hearing about your situation from a friend, he began, choosing his words carefully, and I wanted to reach out personally. Suddenly, her defenses shot up. What do you know? She interjected, her voice tinged with skepticism. I'm nobody special. On the contrary, Sarah, he said, his voice steady. Your story matters. You're doing everything you can to provide for your son. That takes strength. She thought about Timmy, his little face lighting up at the simplest things, like a new box of crayons or a trip to the park. Did her struggle seem heroic to someone like Patrick? But I'm failing, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't even afford his school supplies right now. Patrick leaned back, folding his hands on the table. I understand. That's why I'm here. I want to help. The word help was like a lifeline, but it also felt foreign. How can you help? I can't accept charity, she replied, shaking her head with a mix of disbelief and pride. Not charity, he corrected gently. An opportunity. I run a nonprofit that supports single parents who are working hard to build a better life for their kids. We empower parents like you, provide resources, and even job training if that's something you're interested in. The intensity of what he was suggesting struck her like a sudden gust of wind. Job training? A career seemed like a dream far removed from her day-to-day reality. Exactly, he continued, his eyes lighting up. We're hosting a workshop next week, and I believe you would be an asset. You have a fire in your heart, and that counts for so much. Let us turn that into something impactful. Fear tangled in her chest with the inkling of hope. What if she could change everything? What if this moment, this man, was the turning point she desperately needed? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again in her pocket. It was a reminder for her next unsteady step, a looming eviction notice for their home. Panic threatened to swallow her, but Patrick's steady gaze anchored her. "Sarah, it's okay to be scared," he said, his voice calm. "It's a part of growth. But you have to take that first step." She took a deep breath, and before she could even think, she blurted, "What if I fail? What if I try and it all goes wrong?" "If you never try, you'll never know. Life is about risks, and sometimes, we have to risk it all to gain everything," Patrick urged, leaning forward, his words hung between them, a challenge and a promise all at once. As she looked around the cafe, the laughter of the teenagers loosened the tightening knot in her chest. Could she really seize this moment? Could she step into a different life? "Will you think about it?" Patrick asked, his eyes full of hope. The answer was forming on her lips, ready to burst free. Maybe this was her chance to break free from the chains that bound her, and just as she opened her mouth to respond, the cafe door swung open once more, and someone stepped inside, casting a long shadow over them. "Mom!" A familiar little voice rang out, and there stood Timmy, his face glowing with joy. In that instant, Sarah felt everything shift. All those fears, all that uncertainty, it all seemed to dissolve in the warmth of his smile. What would she tell him? Was this the change they needed? Her answer cracked open a door within her, but behind it lay questions shadowed with uncertainty. Would she be brave enough to embrace the future that might await them? And just then, as Timmy ran toward her, Sarah realized that whatever lay ahead might just be the leap of faith they both needed. But would she take it? The room buzzed with possibility. Timmy bolted towards her, his small legs practically flying across the cafe floor. Sarah knelt down, arms open wide, and caught him in a warm embrace that filled her with an overwhelming sense of love and purpose. For a moment, the world around them faded, and it was just her and her little boy, wrapped in the safety of each other. "Mom! Look what I made!" Timmy exclaimed, holding out a mashed-up piece of paper, crayon drawings bursting with color like fireworks. His eyes sparkled with pride. Sarah couldn't help but smile through the haze of uncertainty. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said, kissing his forehead. "You've put your heart into this, haven't you? Aha! It's a magic robot that gives hugs. Just like you." His laughter filled her, and for the briefest moment, everything felt right. Maybe even magical, just like his robot, but reality crept back in dark and heavy. The eviction notice loomed large in her mind, and she could almost hear the ticking of a clock counting down to when their lives might be uprooted. She glanced at Patrick, who watched them with a gentle smile, understanding etched into his features. His presence reminded her that help could be right at her fingertips. "Mom, can we get ice cream?" Timmy asked, pulling her out of her thoughts. The question sent a pang of guilt racing through her. Ice cream? Hardly a staple when they needed essentials. "Maybe another time, buddy." He frowned, and her heart twisted. "But I've been so good. I finished my homework and everything." His eyes widened, glistening with unshed tears. A surge of love and deep frustration battled within her. How could she tell her son that they were scraping by, making choices based on what little they had left? Each day felt like a tightrope walk between hope and despair. But looking at Timmy, innocence radiating from his small frame, she knew they had to find a better way. "Hey, why don't we sit down and eat together first?" she offered, swallowing her own disappointment. Timmy nodded, still hopeful. As they slid into a booth, Patrick approached, attention fixed on Timmy. "Your drawings are amazing. I can see you're quite the artist," he said, genuinely impressed. Timmy beamed under the praise, chest puffing up with each word. "I made a robot that gives hugs. Do you like it?" "I love it," Patrick replied, and then turned to Sarah. "It seems like this little guy has a lot of magic to share. Just like you." Her heart fluttered at his words, but they also stirred the fear deep inside her. What if she failed him? What if this opportunity slipped through her fingers, like everything else in her life? Sarah, Patrick said, drawing her attention again, you have an incredible chance here. You just need to take it. You're not alone in this. She weighed his words against her fears. Could she really abandon her worries and plunge into this unknown world, hoping to create a life for Timmy that he deserved? Would it be worth the risk? Timmy jolted her out of her thoughts. Mom! Can I show him what else I can do? Of course, Timmy. She ruffled his hair, caught in the warmth of his enthusiasm. As Timmy began to demonstrate some of his dance moves, little spins and exaggerated twirls, Sarah felt a sudden surge of inspiration. Watching him dance joyfully, she couldn't help but reflect on the strength that lay within her, a strength that mirrored her son's innocence and passion for life. In that moment, Sarah knew she had choices to make, decisions that would ripple into their tomorrow. But could she take the leap, go against all that fear whispered to her, and embrace the opportunity Patrick offered? The cafe buzzed around them, life pulsating with promises beyond her current struggle. With Timmy's laughter ringing in her ears, she felt that guiding spark ignite. How about we think about that workshop together? She finally suggested, turning to Patrick, her voice steadier than she had anticipated. Absolutely, I'd love to help you both, Patrick responded, his smile unwavering. As they wrapped up the conversation, Sarah locked eyes with Timmy, a question lodged in her throat. What if this was the moment that unraveled everything? What if it was the beginning of something beautiful? But before she could contemplate that leap of faith, the cafe door swung open once more. This time, it was someone Sarah recognized, a figure from her past who had been pivotal in her life but who also brought complications. Her heart raced. What would this person want from her now? And how would it intertwine with her tentative steps toward a new beginning? The uncertainty plagued her, but in the depths of her heart, she felt an undeniable urge to fight for her son's brighter future. Would she rise to the challenge, or would her past hold her captive once more? The figure stepped into the cafe, a familiar silhouette that made Sarah's breath hitch. It was Lucy, her childhood friend who had moved away years ago. Lucy's bright smile and buoyant energy had always drawn Sarah to her, even during the darkest days of her own childhood. But what was she doing here now, standing before Sarah like a reminder of everything she once had and lost? Sarah! Lucy exclaimed, her voice like a burst of sunlight. It's been ages. I was just passing through. Is that Timmy? Timmy, still buzzing with excitement from his dance, turned, and his little face lit up with recognition. Aunt Lucy! He shouted, jumping up to give her a hug, momentarily blinding Sarah with joy. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, Sarah took a moment. Lucy had always brought a spark, but her past visits had also resurfaced old wounds, reminding Sarah of lost dreams and opportunities. Where had Lucy been all these years? And how could her presence complicate the fragile decisions that were beginning to shift in Sarah's life today? As the two women embraced, Timmy pulled back and chimed in, "We were just talking about a robot that gives hugs." A robot? Lucy laughed, kneeling to Timmy's level with genuine delight. That sounds amazing. You should enter it in a contest. Timmy beamed with pride. We might start a baking class too. He added, causing an unexpected wave of warmth to wash over Sarah, fueled by Lucy's enthusiasm. Baking? That's perfect. Lucy's gaze twinkled as she straightened up, then turned to Sarah, her expression softening. So, what's new with you? You haven't changed a bit. But Sarah did change. In ways that were shadowy, intertwined with worry and fatigue. The weight of her everyday struggles clung to her more than ever, and she could feel the tension creeping back in. Glancing at Patrick, who remained observant yet patient, she wrestled with how much to share. Forcing a smile, Sarah replied, "Just everyday stuff. Timmy keeps me busy." Lucy tilted her head, studying her. You sure? Because it looks like you're carrying a burden. If something's going on, you can talk to me. I'm here now. The sincerity in Lucy's voice pricked at the veil Sarah had worn for so long. Her heart fluttered, it felt like a pebble tossed into the ocean, creating ripples. Maybe this moment held more potential than she realized. Everything's just different, Sarah admitted, her voice just above a whisper as she finally met Lucy's gaze. Different can be good or bad, Lucy replied, the earlier buoyancy slowing, her understanding deepening. What is going on? Timmy, sensing the gravity of the moment, kept quiet, his little hands fiddling with his drawing, waiting for the right moment to jump back in when the mood lightened. Before Sarah could respond, Patrick interjected gently. Sarah's been facing some challenges, he said, tossing her a lifeline as he positioned himself as a supportive bridge. But she's got some exciting opportunities on the horizon. The thought of those words made Sarah's heart race. Opportunities that could change our lives, she echoed softly, glancing between Lucy and Patrick. Exactly, Patrick added, his warm eyes encouraging her to lean in deeper. After processing the information, Lucy stepped closer, a knowing expression spreading. Whatever you're thinking, I'm here to help. When I was last here, we talked about a fundraiser for the community. I mean it, even if it's just baking. We can make it happen. For the first time in ages, Sarah felt a crack within her armor she wore every day. But what if I fail? She whispered, the specter of doubt still so close. Think of Timmy, Lucy urged, eyes glimmering as she squeezed Sarah's hand. He needs to see you believe in not just him, but yourself too. Show him that it's okay to step out of your comfort zone. You're strong. You'll figure this out together. The sensation of trust began to thread through Sarah like rays of sunshine breaking through clouds, an invitation she couldn't ignore. Just say yes, Timmy encouraged, flashing her an impish grin. Let us bake. We can make 1,000 robots. In that carefree moment, the laughter bubbled up, disarming her apprehension, and suddenly anxiety seemed smaller compared to the joy that surrounded them. Okay. Let us do this. She said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. Really? Patrick's eyes sparkled with hope, lighting a fire within her. Yes. She cried, feeling the weight of expectation dissipate. It was as if the chains holding her back were melting, and suddenly, the world shifted. Timmy bounced up and down, cheering, and even Lucy joined in a small victory dance that had them laughing uncontrollably. The sheer happiness seemed to anchor Sarah, connecting her to both the present and the future she longed to build for Timmy. We can get started preparing for the baking class tonight. Lucy suggested, eyes lighting with possibilities. I've got recipes and ideas. We'll get the community involved. And with that, the flicker of hope transformed into a roaring flame. Sarah could see a future unfolding, an intricate tapestry woven with love, resilience, and support. As they chatted and plotted, she realized that this leap was no longer just about her, it was about Timmy dreaming big and believing in their future. We can do this, she said, her voice steady with newfound conviction. Together, they could pull through anything. And as Sarah soaked in the wonder of the moment, she felt a healing shift within her, a grace enveloping her, steering her toward a life that was not only filled with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches but also baking, laughter, and a hopeful tomorrow. Time slipped fluidly as possibilities swirled like frosting on a cake. And in that cafe, in the warmth of connections reconnecting, Sarah found the strength she had been searching for all along. Now, as we enter the final stretch of this beautiful story, remember your support is crucial. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now if this journey touched your heart and you want more of these amazing transformations. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear how it inspired you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible journey of hope and dreams. Don't wait not even one more second. You need to support the channel and be part of this community that believes in the power of change.